As if understanding climate change wasn't difficult enough, Yale's two climate bomb predictions the last few months have not helped. One signals heat and the other cold. Which one wins? Let's bring the heat first. This is less of a prediction and more of our model suggests that this trend could result in a methane release of significant proportions that would further warm the Arctic and melt more ice. Let's take a step back and remember a bit more of that settled science. Paleoclimatology is solid on the last few 100,000 years. We've mostly been in glacial periods, with brief periods being warmer, known as interglacials. Those would be the spikes upward. The ice melts, the planet heats up, the methane is released, and somehow every time we plunge into an ice age. This is not disputed by anyone, and for more on this topic, you can investigate the well-understood Milankovitch cycles. It seems that ice concentrates at the polar region, dropping albedo and heating the planet. This eventually overtakes the polar region as well, melting that ice, releasing the methane, etc. Cold, fresh water and various atmospheric connections send us spiraling into an ice age thereafter. Just this month, we learned that part of that process may include that extra cold fresh water creating a stratification in the oceans that halts convection, not to mention the Gulf Stream, keeping the cold fresh water on top and the deep waters containing the ocean methane releases from below locked down there below. This cold fresh water is also easier to freeze, leading to more albedo because at lower latitude, ice reflects more sunlight than the ice lost at the polar region, which receives less sunlight. We also learned this month that the sun and future expected trends of the sun are not the only proliferators of disrupted jet streams and polar vortex events. Both the solar minimum physics at hand and the warming Arctic now present precisely the pattern that makes for the terrible snowstorms like we're seeing in New England this month, the earlier season storms from Europe, the Middle East, and Asia as well. Now let's realize we still have that other ticking climate bomb from Yale, the cold one. The Beaufort Gyre is supposed to accumulate fresh cold water and then release it every 5 to 7 years. That is the cycle. However, for about 2 decades now, it has been stuck, accumulating a record amount of cold fresh water, and when it releases that which it has been keeping captive, it will be everything we just talked about, but on steroids. Those studies that we have just been discussing observing the cold effects are doing so without the usual cold injection, and when that happens, the discharge of huge amounts of ice and cold fresh water could have unpredictable effects. So let's review. We are in the interglacial right now, and the ice is at the poles, but the north is melting. We'll have more cold fresh water coming in to stratify the ocean, making the top more easily frozen, the methane held down below, and the atmospheric disruptions that lead to more extreme climate, especially in winter. That is happening now before the release of the gyre, without the Earth's usual 5 to 7 year cyclic cold injection. When that happens, it will intensify the stratification and albedo and extremity of winter. Each of these studies individually says that while they have found a cold signal, there are still other things about the climate that it won't overcome in terms of warming. But there's a problem. You see, group studying C also found a cold signal and referenced all the other letters. Then group E found a cooling signal and referenced all the other letters. There's a bit of a circular problem here where everyone is finding signals of cold but exclaiming that all the other factors will overcome it to still warm the planet. Nobody is listening to the other group saying the exact same thing. Now for the whipped cream. Princeton captured the opponent's queen. Cloud cooling effects are underappreciated. They are a net cooling factor, not a net heating factor in the greenhouse sense. After all, do you wear a white or black shirt when you want to stay cool on a sunny day? This isn't Venus, and our white clouds have perfect albedo. They published 2 more studies just this year confirming these effects, claiming that it wouldn't be enough to overcome A, B, C, D, and E, not realizing what they were saying either, and for their small part, physics professor emeritus Will Happer at Princeton stood up behind them, calling much of the warming-only discussion science fiction and not science. But sadly, not only are they not listening to each other, they aren't paying attention to space weather. A full analysis documentary here on YouTube explains how Earth's three primary magnetic shields against cosmic radiation are weakening. Here are the highlights from the world's top scientists. Cosmic rays had long been suspected to cause volcanic eruptions based on timing, but in 2011 we finally got the mechanism: viscosity changes in silica-rich magma. The specific timeline tying these events to the low solar activity, high galactic cosmic ray cycle was confirmed just this year in 2018. Less than a month ago, we got the first confirmation that the increase in those cosmic rays is indeed happening faster than expected. Most of these predictions only take into account the solar heliospheric protective field, when a major factor is Earth's magnetic field weakening 5% per decade as well. Not only do they trigger volcanoes, which cool the planet, but they ionize the atmosphere and directly contribute to cloud cover. All that information can be seen in the documentary. The big picture is that within a 100% mainstream climate science look at the globe, the more the Arctic melts, the more a chill will spread through the oceans. The atmosphere is already being disrupted, and we haven't yet seen the release of the gyre, or the peak of cosmic rays.